NFC West also home to two very talented holding in receivers. The hold in seems to be a newfangled thing now. Joe, how does a team handle that, and how do you think the Niners and the Seahawks are going to deal with Deebo and DK respectively?
Well, they should find a way to get a deal done with both of them. I was actually part of the team representing the league in the 2011 CBA negotiations when the amount of fines, the consequences of holding out, when you were allowed to do a second contract, all changed in a way that was very favorable to the team. So I think it was one of the undiscussed areas in which the union could have done a better job. And we anticipated on the league side that would eventually lead to players reporting to camp, but not really effectively reporting to camp and participating the way they should. But we could not think of any strategy or fine or policy or rule that could prevent that, because how do you tell the difference between the players that's legitimately hurt? You can be very suspicious, but you can't really prove it. So you really have something that's pretty unenforceable, and the players are smart enough, I can report. We've seen this now. I think Jalen Ramsey was the first one that did it so, openly, in which it seemed really obvious that it was really an attempt to, use his leverage and his power to get the result that he was hoping for. But I think we're going to just see more and more of this. I mean, the players in all sports are feeling more emboldened and recognize the leverage they have. And I don't know, there's no way the 49ers aren't a massively better team with Deebo, and worked with Kyle Shanahan for a short time. I guarantee you he really values that and appreciates that, recognizes it. So maybe they have to overpay a little bit, but they got to get a deal done. And, it's going to be worth it.
And then what about
$1 million, $1 or $2 million in a cap that's about to be $250 million? Not worth it.
I agree. I agree. But what about DK? I mean, what do you think Seattle's plan is here? We were already talking about how they might jump on Jimmy G just a week before the season, if that actually is a possibility, because we don't believe that Locke and Gino's a long-term answer. I mean, Pete Carroll is still there. He's not there to rebuild. I mean, what do you think the plan is there with DK, and do you think it's possible they trade him, or they should sign him and move forward? What do you think?
I mean, for me, the answer there is, as I look out 2 or 3 years, which I think is the earliest point at which they have a chance to be real, legitimate, objective contenders to make the playoffs and even maybe have a chance to make a little bit of run. Do you see him as an integral part of that team 2 to 3 years from now? If the answer is yes, unless his expectations are just so unreasonable you can't accommodate him, I'd say the same thing. Get the deal done. I mean, he's a top-tier player at a position that's become more valued. I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's what the league says. Get it done. Now, I can see where they're feeling like, listen, this year is kind of a reorientation of our roster and our team, our style of play, changing some coaches, even though we didn't change the head coach. So they're probably not feeling the same sense of urgency as a team like the 49ers that has a real chance to compete in the immediate future. But, I don't know in this era if you can't see yourself in 2 or 3 years really valuing him and thinking he's a clear number one wide receiver and an integral part of what we've rebuilt, then now is the moment. You got to get the deal done now. There's no point in going through the aggravation and the stress and testing his resolve, which, by the way, won't last that long because the consequences of holding out have been increased dramatically. But then you just got a disgruntled player, and one presumably you're going to still want to sign in a month or 2 or a year. Why just not get it done and avoid all the negativity?